Ever think about what makes a society, you know, really last?
Like stand the test of time.
Yeah, exactly. We hear about sustainable development, right? Like the UN and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But what about a sustainable society? What makes some communities thrive?
While others just kind of fall apart.
Right. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah. We've got this speech, Sustainable Societies,
Oh,
by Elder D. Todd Christofferson. Now, it's given at the 2020 General Conference.
of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yep, exactly. So for anyone who's not familiar.
Not everyone's going to be in the loop.
Right. General Conference, it's this big twice-a-year event. Global. Where church leaders give kind of guidance, teachings for the members worldwide.
Gotcha.
But what I found fascinating
Okay, tell me.
is how Elder Christofferson compares this idea of sustainable development.
Like the UN goals, ending poverty, that sort of thing.
Exactly. To the idea of sustainable societies.
Which is
Like, those goals are important, for sure.
Absolutely.
But they don't quite get to the, like, core.
The root of it.
Yes, of what makes a society truly sustainable long-term.
He's going deeper, like treating the cause, not just the symptoms.
Exactly. And to do that, he goes way back.
History buff.
He looks at examples from Scripture, like the city of Zion,
Oh, wow.
built by the prophet Enoch, right? And it's described as this amazing place.
Utopia.
Kinda. People were of one heart and one mind. There was no poor among them.
That's incredible.
And they were blessed upon the mountains and upon the high places.
Whoa. Even in challenging spots, they flourished.
You know that phrase, blessed upon the mountains, it stuck with me?
Yeah, it's evocative.
Like, even when things are tough, a community can thrive if it has the right foundation.
Right, building blocks.
What do you think those key elements are?
Well, he points to a few things. Deep sense of unity, everyone working together.
Teamwork.
And then this idea of being blessed, like a connection to something bigger.
Higher purpose.
Exactly. And he gives another example, the Nephites and Lamanites.
After Christ visited the Americas.
Book of Mormon stuff, right?
Yep. And they had this, like, unbelievable period of peace and unity.
No fighting.
At all. It says no envy, strife, or turmoil.
Wow, that's almost hard to imagine.
Right. But it shows both these societies, despite being so different,
Different contexts, different times.
they both had this strong spiritual foundation.
That seems to be a common thread.
Absolutely. And he points out it wasn't just about, like, individual piety.
So not just praying alone in your room.
Right. They actually put those beliefs into action.
Living it out.
Yeah. He even quotes this phrase, gets right to the heart of it.
Hit me with it.
Every man seeking the interest of his neighbor and doing all things with an eye single to the glory of God.
Powerful stuff. Where's that from?
Doctrine and Covenants.
Okay, so it's like going beyond yourself, truly caring for others.
Spiritually and materially.
Whoa, radical concept. What would the world look like if we all lived that way? It's a beautiful vision.
It is. But here's where it gets interesting. He doesn't shy away from the fact that even the Nephite society, as successful as they were at first,
They didn't stay that way.
they crumbled. It wasn't some guaranteed utopia.
That's a downer.
Right. Makes you wonder, what went wrong? Like, societies aren't static, they can decline.
It's a cautionary tale, for sure.
So what caused this seemingly perfect society to fall apart?
Well, he says pride, class divisions, and the pursuit of wealth, they started to erode things.
Classic pitfalls.
Yeah, they started putting their trust in the arm of flesh, he calls it.
Oh, I've heard that phrase, like relying on worldly power instead of spiritual principles.
Exactly. They lost sight of what made them strong in the first place.
Oof. Success leading to complacency, leading to decline.
It's like a universal story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And kind of scary how relevant it feels today.
Totally. And that leads him to another point. If societies are this fragile,
Delicate balance.
what role do institutions play in, like, shaping those virtues?
Had to make them strong, right?
Yes. And he highlights two specifically, family and religion.
The big ones.
What do you think he sees as their role in all of this?
Well, he sees them as like the main places.
The hubs.
Yeah, where those good values get instilled, integrity, responsibility.
Compassion, respect, all.
Exactly. The stuff that like actually builds a healthy society.
The building blocks of good people.
Right. Family and religion, they give you that framework for moral development.
Help people feel connected to something bigger.
It's a basic human need, right? To belong, have a purpose.
Totally. He even brings up this story from the Wall Street Journal
Interesting.
to kind of illustrate the point. about this writer, Gerard Baker,
Okay.
reflecting on his dad's life, long and meaningful life.
Nice.
And he credits his dad's good character to, like, a life grounded in duty, faith.
And family ties, sounds like.
Exactly, a real-life example of how these principles play out.
It's not just theory.
Right. But then the speech kind of shifts gears.
Where does he go from there?
He acknowledges this trend we see everywhere.
The decline of religion.
Yeah, and the rise of secularism. But he doesn't just, like, condemn it.
He's not all fire and brimstone.
No. He makes this nuanced argument about where morality comes from.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He talks about this light of Christ idea.
I'm not super familiar with that one.
Me neither at first. Basically, it's this idea that everyone,
Regardless of religion.
exactly, is born with this, like, inner sense of right and wrong.
Like a moral compass built in.
Yeah. So it's not something you got to learn, it's already there.
Fascinating. So we all have that capacity for good, he's saying.
That's the argument. But then he gets really thought-provoking.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
He asks, is tradition or culture alone enough to sustain virtue over time?
That's a good question.
Right, like without that connection to something higher.
Some kind of accountability beyond ourselves.
Can societies really thrive? What do you think?
That's a tough one. It makes you think about, like, the role of religion.
Even for people who aren't super religious themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it necessary for a functioning society?
And that leads into another part, a bit more intense, I gotta say.
Okay, lay it on me.
He talks about the consequences if we do see this moral decline.
As societies move away from God, he's saying.
Yeah. It gets kind of heavy.
What does he focus on?
Specifically, the sexual revolution.
Okay.
Argues that it's led to, like, broken families, poverty.
More suffering in the world.
Yeah. He paints this picture of, like, more kids in poverty, single mothers struggling.
Institutions like schools, overwhelmed, trying to pick up the pieces.
It's a lot. It can feel kind of hopeless, like, are these problems even solvable?
Yeah, I get that feeling sometimes too.
He doesn't just leave us in despair.
Thank goodness.
He offers this message of hope, saying things can change.
If enough of us make the effort.
Yeah, if we strive to live by what he calls God's truth.
And embody the virtues that come from that. So what exactly does he mean by God's truth, though?
Good question, and I think it's important to clarify.
Yeah, he's not saying everyone needs to convert.
Right. Remember, he started by saying everyone has that light of Christ.
That built-in morality.
Exactly. So I think what he's getting at is there are these universal truths
that lead to well-being for individuals and society as a whole.
regardless of your specific beliefs.
So tapping into that shared moral compass.
Working together to build a more just and compassionate world.
Sounds great, but how do we actually do that?
Yeah, especially with all the different beliefs and values out there.
It's a real challenge.
How do we bridge those divides?
Honestly, I don't think the speech gives, like, easy answers.
Oh, magic bullet.
But there's some clues. Remember the story of Alma?
The prophet who stepped down from politics.
Yeah. To focus on teaching spiritual principles.
He believed that real change came from understanding truth, not just enforcing rules.
Planting seeds, not just Band-Aids.
Exactly. And I think that's part of it, right?
Shifting our focus.
Less arguing, more meaningful conversations.
Really listening to each other, trying to find that common ground.
Based on shared values, compassion, fairness, respect, all that.
Sounds kind of idealistic, though, doesn't it?
It does. But is there any other way?
If we want truly sustainable societies, I mean, not just environmentally.
But morally, spiritually sustainable.
Yeah, we got to bridge those divides somehow.
Okay, so we've talked about the bad stuff, the decline.
The doom and gloom.
What about the flip side, the positive impact of living these virtues?
What does he say about that?
He says those virtues, integrity, compassion, all that.
It's not just about being a good person.
Right. It actually directly impacts society.
Our individual choices matter.
Yeah, like those small acts of kindness, they add up to something bigger.
A ripple effect.
He says when enough people live by those principles,
It strengthens families, communities.
the whole fabric of society.
He even quotes a hymn, Faith of Our Fathers. We will love both friend and foe
Oh, I know that one.
in all our strife, and preach thee too, as love knows how.
By kindly words and virtuous life.
It's not about preaching at people, it's living it out.
Letting your actions speak louder than words.
It's a call to action, isn't it? Building a better world.
It starts with each of us.
The choices we make, how we treat each other, how we contribute.
I think that's a good spot to pause for now.
We've covered a lot.
We've explored the consequences of that moral decline.
The power of individual virtue.
And that whole idea of finding common ground, despite our differences.
A lot to think about.
In our final segment, we'll dive into his concluding message.
The grand finale.
And explore what it all means for us personally and for society as a whole.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back, man. We've been on a journey with this Sustainable Societies speech, huh?
From ancient cities to modern-day problems.
It's a lot. But, I don't know, what strikes me is it's not all doom and gloom.
He's definitely got hope, Elder Christofferson.
Yeah. He seems optimistic about, the potential for good.
I think that comes from his belief that there is a path forward.
To build better societies.
Not just sustainable, but, truly thriving societies.
And he keeps bringing it back to, it all starts with people, right?
It's not about the structures, the systems.
It's about individuals living with meaning, with purpose, guided by those principles that connect us.
Instead of dividing us.
Okay, so that's hopeful and all, but how do we actually do that?
Yeah, I mean, big picture is one thing, but what can I, little old me, do?
Right.
Well, he uses this really powerful image towards the end.
Okay.
He quotes Christ's invitation.
Hit me with it.
Come unto me, all ye ends of the earth. Buy milk and honey, without money and without price.
Whoa, that's, poetic.
Right.
Milk and honey, it's abundance, nourishment, sweetness.
Just having what they need.
Yeah, to thrive. And it's for everyone.
All ye ends of the earth, he says. Doesn't matter who you are, where you've been.
It's about creating that space where everyone feels valued.
Where everyone belongs.
That sense of belonging, I think that's key to a truly sustainable society.
Like that saying, it takes a village.
We need each other.
We do. And that phrase, without money and without price.
Yeah, what's that about?
I think it's saying true fulfillment, both personally and as a society.
It's not something you earn.
It's a gift.
That's deep.
Our worth isn't tied to, what we achieve or what we own.
It's just there, inherent.
Which is honestly kind of freeing, isn't it?
It is. If your value's already given, then you can focus on other things.
Generosity, service, compassion.
It's just your whole perspective from what can I get?
To what can I give?
Which is ultimately what makes a more, joyful and sustainable society.
It all comes back around to those virtues, doesn't it?
Love, integrity, responsibility.
He's not saying we need, a rule book. More like, we got to create a culture where those things can grow naturally.
Provide the soil, not just dictate the plant.
Exactly. Empower people to live meaningful lives, support each other along the way.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I gotta say, feeling a lot of things.
Mixed bag.
Yeah. Urgency, the world's got problems, it's easy to get overwhelmed.
But there's hope, too.
Yeah. This speech reminds us we're not powerless. We can choose to embody those virtues.
Extend a hand, build bridges, all that.
And that's a good place to leave it, I think. It's not some distant dream.
Sustainable societies.
Yeah, it's something we can actually create.
It starts with us. In our own lives, our families, our communities.
So here's a thought for you to take with you. What's one small act of kindness, generosity, that you could offer today? Even the smallest things can ripple outwards.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks. It's been real.